Hey everyone, thanks for joining me on Tea and Chocolate today. I have a very special guest that I'm absolutely thrilled to have. Her name is, I didn't even ask you what your how you pronounce your last name. Is Cherylann Beaudette?
Beaudette.
Beaudette, okay. And I want to acknowledge that I am actually on the unceded territory of Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsawwaltooth. And Claudette, or Cherylann, is the author of Silent Cries. And it's an incredible memoir, if I can describe it that way. It really captured me like right at the start because you just go right into what happened. So thank you so much for writing this book and sharing your experience.
You're welcome.
Experiences. So welcome. Thanks for joining me.
You're welcome.
So Cherylann, what prompted you to write the book? And if you give us a bit of a synopsis on how it all began for you.
I started journaling when I was a young girl to help with my healing. And I just kept journaling. And as I got older, I didn't have time for it. And I used to always say, I want to write a book. I had so much trauma in my life. I want to write a book. And it was always put on the back burner. And when my mom talked to me about it, she says, don't put anybody's name in it. She says, it's best that way. So I waited for my mom to pass before I wrote the book because I didn't want her to know everything that happened to me. I didn't want her to be hurt. And it's about sexual abuse from the young age of 5. And it went along into my teenage years by the same abuser, my stepfather. And my uncles abused me. My grandfather abused me.
Wow.
My babysitters abused me. The people I babysat for abused me. I was raped when I was 15 on 2 separate occasions. And then I had 4 marriages. I was married when I was 16. I was married in my 20s, again in my 30s. And they were all very abusive relationships. And so I write about that in my story. And I am here today.
Yeah, that's a lot. And I don't mean to laugh about it because as I was reading the book, I'm thinking, God, because you do make the comment about you don't know how you got through it. And I'm thinking, God, I don't know how anybody would, because these happenings occurred to you when it started at 5 years old.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's hard to even comprehend and take that in terms of, the trauma of that and going through your life. One of the things that I noticed is that each experience that you had with abuse is that you just kept going regardless of what was happening. It was like, okay, well, this happened, and then you kept going. And so even though it sounds very victimizing, but you have a lot of resilience and hope. That's what I got.
I didn't have a choice really, but to keep going. This was the only life I knew. Like when you're 5 years old and being sexually abused, you don't know that it's wrong.
Right.
And because you have nothing to compare it to.
Right.
You don't see this on TV because back then there wasn't anything like that on TV. So I thought that was something normal. And then it kept happening on a regular basis. And then when I was molested by my grandfather, it's like, well, that's normal. Like my stepfather's doing it, so why not my grandfather? And then when my uncles were abusing me, it's like, well, yeah, that's what men do. And I didn't know I was being abused. I didn't know any different because I was too young to know.
Right. Until when?
Until I was 13. And then I was raped by my boyfriend when I was 15. And I didn't even know then that it was rape because it was my boyfriend.
Certainly.
And since he wanted to have sex, I have to oblige because he is my boyfriend.
Mm-hmm.
And I only realized that when I was, well, actually last year.
Really?
Last year, I had a breakdown, and I was talking to my girls about the men that abused me. And then it's like, oh my God, my first boyfriend, he raped me. It was rape because of the words he said to me also. He told me, I'm not doing what your stepfather did to you. I'm not raping you.
Right.
That's what he said to me.
Right. Right.
So I didn't even know until last year that he raped me. I thought we just had sex.
Right. So let's backtrack here for a second. In your early years, you say that your parents had this really huge argument.
Yes, I
Yeah.
still remember it. I
Yeah.
still remember the stove, the record player on the stove,
Right.
the
What was
record player getting thrown.
okay? Why I know that the you mentioned the boyfriend in this dialogue.
Yes.
Yes, I guess your mother went outside the marriage.
Yes. And I know that my dad knew about it
Yes.
because the only thing I remember my dad saying to me as a little girl was, if that bastard comes into this house, I'm going to nail him to the wall.
Right.
That's
Yes.
the only thing I remember about my dad.
As a young person.
Yes.
Right. Right. Do you know, do you have any sort of understanding why your mother chose that for herself?
He was a much older man. Well, that's what I thought. He was a much older man,
Yeah.
but my dad was almost as old. My
Right.
mom and dad were 17 years apart,
Okay.
and the other man was 20 years apart.
Wow. Okay.
But when I talked to my mom about it, she had told me that um, my dad was jealous, was a jealous man.
Mm.
That's why she didn't want to be with him.
Right. So, she, so it sounds like you were saying to me that she also was abused when she was still in diapers, correct?
Yes,
Yes.
yes,
So in that, you know, she's already, you know, you're in the womb as a baby, and you're, you know, from my understanding and learning is that the womb is the area, the most precious area, and you're picking up a lot of, you know, whatever it is that the mother's feeling. So I couldn't
yes,
help but understand or want to understand how it's you've just taken on this perhaps generational, or at least from your mom, um,
yes,
yeah, this trauma, and you've just, you know, you've just received it, and it's like here you are experiencing similar things that she did.
yes. And when I talked to my mom about it, I was in my 20s when I finally told her what my stepfather did to me.
So she had no comprehension when you as this happening to you as a
No,
5 year old.
I don't
None.
I don't think so. Like when it was happening to me,
Okay.
but when I left home, I was 15 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And as an adult, my younger sister said to me that mom and stepfather had lots of arguments about me while I was gone.
Okay.
So that's when I believed that she started questioning him, because
Right.
I did report to the Children's Aid back then what
Right.
happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
So they must have talked to them about it, and
Yeah.
nothing ever came out of it.
When I know that he used words to you such as like keep things a secret.
Yes.
How has that affected the rest of your life in terms of everyday living, like just keeping things a secret? Has that played in anywhere in other areas of your life?
I stopped believing in people because of secrets.
Hmm.
I have no friends because of secrets.
Even today?
I have one friend. I have one friend
Okay.
because I don't like wondering if they're going to talk about me, what they think about me. Do I have to explain to them why I am the way I am? Because
Right.
I don't think I'm a normal person.
Uh-huh.
I don't like going places
Right.
because of that secret. What if somebody asks me, what happened to you? So I always stayed home and I didn't want to have friends because of these secrets. But I taught my girls very young. I have 3 girls. I taught them around the age of when I was abused, 5 years old, about secrets. Nobody is going to keep a secret. You tell me whatever needs to be told.
Uh-huh. Right. The value of the truth.
Yes.
Okay.
And I really believe that's why I don't have friends. I don't trust people.
Right.
I don't.
Right. Well, I guess, that's understandable. This is your journey. And I think that, it's not all of you, it's a part of you. And I know that he stole a lot of things from you,
Yes.
the boyfriend, your mother's boyfriend, as you've articulated in the book, but it's not all of who you are, right? It happened to you, right? It's not all of you. It's just, it's incredibly traumatic and unfortunate. Like I said, I empathize with you. That's all I can do. But I think sharing your story is really, really powerful because
Yes,
there's a
I
lot of people that are in silence, male or female. Um, and so I think maybe that might, if you've thought of this at all, but perhaps give you a sense of freedom to continue to share your story. I don't know. I
yeah,
can't remember how I found you, but it came across my screen. I don't know if it was on Instagram or I can't remember now, right? And I thought, oh, that looked really interesting. Let me just check this out. So,
probably Facebook. I opened up a Facebook page
okay.
and I used my name Cherylann Beaudette because my maiden name is Beaudette.
Yeah.
And I just started adding people. I don't even know who I added. I just kept
Okay. Well,
adding people.
it's not me.
And
I'll tell you that right now. It wasn't me.
and
Yeah.
and that's all I have on that page. On my wall is stories about Silent Cries.
Mm. Apart from your this boyfriend that's in your home,
Yes.
how would you describe the way you were raised by your mother?
Um, my mother was kind of mean to me. That's how I would put it. She was mean to me. She was
Okay.
very strict.
In what
I
way?
don't remember. I don't remember my mom ever spanking me. I don't ever remember that. I was never
Okay.
spanked by her. Uh, I was very young, probably around 6 years old, when I had to start doing dishes. And I think that's very young. I used to have to put a chair up to the sink to do dishes.
Yeah.
And when I was probably around 9 years old, I used to have to start washing clothes with a wringer washer. My mom would tell me, uh, this is how you do it. And she would pick up the clothes and put it through the wringer and show me how to do that. And I had to continue doing that. And then I used to have to hang out the clothes. And I always wondered, why do we have to do that in the wintertime? It's frozen. So I did that. I had to cook at a young age, probably 12 years old, I was cooking. And what I really didn't like was having to cook for my stepfather because
Oh.
it was cooking for him.
Oh, yeah.
And I did not like it.
Hmm. When did you recognize that level of anger that you had for this person?
For my stepfather,
Hmm.
I started resenting him only around the age of 13 when I had a boyfriend because my stepfather was getting jealous
Hmm.
because I was spending a lot of time with my boyfriend who lived next door to me, who is my stepfather's nephew. So it's family.
Okay.
So he didn't like that.
Yeah. Am I to assume that you're in an Indigenous community when you're speaking about these individuals? Are you fully
Yes.
Indigenous? You are. Okay. You've lived on reserve and off reserve.
I lived off reserve until the age of 7, and I moved to Nipissing First Nation.
Okay. So I know that you and I said, or that you told me that your mother was not, she did not go to residential schools.
No, she didn't.
Okay. But to me, this sounds like, again, as I was reading the book, that um, there's a, how do I say this? There's an allowance that happens where everyone's just crossing boundaries here. You know, from your grandfather to your you know, your uncles who were teenagers. We need to acknowledge that
Yes.
they don't know the difference here, or maybe they do. And so I'm wondering if that's the resident, or that if those are the the passings of the residential
Yes.
schools.
I don't even know if my grandparents on either side were ever in residential school,
Okay.
or their parents, like I don't know my history.
Were you able to find out?
All my mom said is that she was not in residential school.
Okay. And she didn't expand on anything else.
No.
Okay. So you're saying that your mom was mean and all the rest of that. How did you, I know that at the end of the life, the both of you came to a sense of peace and understanding with each other, or at least you need, you know, for her.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I had a falling out with my mom very young, like in my 20s.
Hmm.
And I wanted to know, I had a conversation with her asking her if she loved me.
Mm.
And she says, yes, I loved you. I
Yeah.
said, what about when you were pregnant for me? Did you love being pregnant for me?
Oh,
I
yeah.
said, what about now? I'm an adult mom and I don't even feel that love.
Uh-huh.
And she said that she cannot help the way I feel. That's something I have to work on. And I said, Mom, I did a lot of things growing up just to get your approval.
Like what?
And um, growing up, I sold Avon for one.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I was 16 years old. I was selling Avon. I was pregnant for my first child, and I'm selling Avon because I seen all the different things that you could win for different levels that you accomplish. So I was reaching out for these so I could give these gifts to my mom.
Mm-hmm. Right, I see.
I always want her approval,
Mm-hmm.
praised from her. And I told her I never received it from you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And even when I was pregnant for my first child, I wanted her approval. And she told me to have an abortion.
Wow.
And I told her I can't do that. When I had my second child, she told me the same thing, to have an abortion.
Why is
And
she?
then
Oh,
I
sorry.
don't know. And then when I was pregnant for my third child, I didn't tell her.
Mm.
She came to me.
Okay.
She came to me and she says, "What's this? I hear that you're pregnant." I said, "Yes, I am." And she says, "Well, why didn't you tell me? Why did I have to hear it from someone on the street?" I said, "Well, because I have 2 abortions walking around here already, Mom. This one you can't tell me to abort because it's already past the time. I was already 5 months pregnant."
I'm curious, like why she was, you know, insistent on you having these abortions.
I have no idea.
So,
I couldn't even think of why she wanted me to get rid
right,
of my babies.
right. You have a lot of unknowns in your life still, like a lot of unanswered
Yes,
questions, correct?
yes, I do.
Do you sit with that every day?
All the time. The only one I could really talk to about it would be my mom's older sister,
Hmm?
and she doesn't know a lot of things either. She said that my mother didn't really confide too much in her.
Right. So there's a lot, there's a theme of silence and not trusting.
Yes.
Um, okay. I know that you're, I was really curious about a couple of things. So, that you're a devout, is it Catholic or Christian?
Christian, born again Christian.
Okay. What about your Indigenous roots?
Nothing.
Really?
Nothing. I
Wow.
was not I was not raised around the traditions at all. We were here, but my mom would tell me, "You are Catholic."
Ah,
When
okay.
I was Catholic, I was raised Catholic,
Mhm.
but when I was, I don't know, in my 30s, I think, well, it was 1991. September 30th, 1991, I became a born again Christian.
Mhm.
And my mom told me that you were born Catholic and that's who you are. That's who you will always be. When I was baptized in the Pentecostal church, I asked my mom if she would come. And she said, I already baptized you. You were baptized once, you don't need to do it again. And I told her, you made that decision for me.
Mhm.
I said, I didn't decide to get born Catholic.
Yes. This is fascinating.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, because I guess because I'm trying not to make any assumptions or
Okay.
stereotype or any of
Yeah.
that. I guess what I'm saying, what I'm hearing is your mother is already sort of set the precedent of how you should be in the world.
Yes.
And so, and
She wanted me to be a nurse.
pardon me?
She wanted me to be a nurse.
Mhm.
Maybe that's why she didn't want me to have these babies so young.
Yeah. Well, and I think there's a deeper meaning behind it, right? Because I don't know what it is. I don't want to make, again, any assumptions, but again, it's sort of silencing and even not trusting your Indigenous culture,
Yes.
right? Because there's stuff there, obviously. We've heard about it, in the news lately and even throughout, the past few years, the trauma of the Indigenous peoples. So when I read that you were practicing, Christian, I thought, wow, okay, great. There's no judgment on that. But then what about that part of her that belongs to a tribe of people that came before her, well before her?
And the strange thing about that is I don't follow my Indigenous culture, but yet I
Yes.
do beadwork every day. I
Well,
do beadwork.
right.
I always, always do beadwork.
Well, my understanding too is that when, generations pass, like we are them, right? On the
Yes.
DNA level. So somewhere in your psyche, you're you're doing beadwork of your great 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 great, that kind of thing. And I know that it keeps you focused and centered, and it's a way of um a healing for you. Is that, I don't want to assume.
Yes.
Yeah.
It keeps my mind busy
Right.
because if it's not busy,
Yes.
I'm not in a good place.
Right.
I think of things, I
That
think
I'm
of myself.
right.
Yes.
Right.
Like that's self-centered pity. And I shouldn't feel that way, but that's how I feel.
Well, give yourself a break. I mean, I don't think you need to say that's not shouldn't how I feel. I don't know how you move forward on this. I don't know if I'm not a professional, but what you've experienced is, you know, again, I'm not a professional, but it's traumatic, and it's, you know, the people that have done this have, scraped the bottom of the barrel of humanity, right? Of,
Yes. There are still people that abuse me that are still alive.
oh yeah.
And I want I wanted to hurt my uncles
Mm,
by telling their family what they did to me.
right.
And then I thought, it wouldn't be fair. It wouldn't be fair to his wife for me to tell her what he did to me when I was younger. What am I going to accomplish
Yeah.
except hurting him?
I was going to ask you about forgiveness in terms of, forgiving the people that have harmed you, even forgiving yourself on some level.
I forgave my stepfather
You did.
because
Right.
he came to me, and when he was in his early 70s,
Yeah.
probably not too long before he passed away, and he asked me to forgive him. He told me he was sorry for hurting me. He said, I didn't know that you hurt me. that he didn't know that he hurt me. And he said, do what you have to do to make things right. And that was on the road. He was sitting in his car and I was walking. And I just had this heavy burden that was just lifted when he apologized to me. And I accepted that apology because I know deep in his heart he was really sorry for what he did to me.
I wonder what occurred that made him apologize to you.
My mom left him.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
She left him. Yeah, I remember when I had talked to her about what he did to me. I was 24 years old
Mm-hmm.
when I told her what he did to me. And she left him for a few months and went back to him.
Okay.
And then there was no trust in that relationship anymore, my mom and my stepfather. And the one day he just came forward and said he was really sorry for what he did.
Mm-hmm. Did that burden of relief, was that surprising for you to feel in that moment?
Yes, it was, because how can I forgive someone that hurt me so bad?
Yeah.
That was in my mind. How can I forgive? But then on another level, I thought, I have to forgive. How can I get forgiveness when I do things wrong? How can I get forgiveness if I can't forgive?
Yeah. That's good insight. I mean,
But
yeah.
I haven't forgiven everyone yet. And I don't know how to go past that.
Yeah.
There's still a lot of anger there.
Sure. Let me get back to you on that one for a second. I want to go back to
Okay.
your faith.
Yes.
What's your relationship with, how does that help you in your day-to-day?
The fear of God keeps me alive.
What does that mean?
That means I think of suicide, and I know that
Okay.
God does not like that. It
Okay.
is not my life to take. This is
Right.
God's life to take.
Yes, I see what you're
I
saying.
know, and I know I would be punished by him if I took my life.
Mm-hmm. You
So
you say, right.
that's what
Okay.
keeps me alive.
Right. You say that, okay, so if you think God's gifted you this life,
Yes.
um, what do you think he wanted for you?
Silent Cries.
So you think he wanted you to have these experiences?
I don't think he wanted me to have the experiences, but I think he wanted me to go through what I went through to help other people.
I see. Yeah.
That is why Silent Cries is here.
Right. Yeah. I'm asking those questions in the context of this is how you write about your relationship with God, the universe. People will, all sorts of spiritual practices will describe it in different kinds of ways. And so
Yes.
to be respectful of your faith, I'm wanting to understand that because you write in the book, you use the word sin a lot.
Yes.
Yeah. And I'm very familiar with that because I was raised Catholic. So and what that sort of the use of those words and understanding does to a person, right? It's all guilt, you know,
It is.
and self-loathing and all those things. And I think it's, I don't know, at some point it's like moving away from all those words because you didn't do anything wrong, right?
I didn't do anything wrong, but
Yeah,
I didn't know. I
sure.
didn't know any better.
Yeah, yeah.
But the guilt was always there. The guilt was there. The shame was there. And I carried that for 51 years.
Mm-hmm.
I'm 56 now.
Yeah.
and it wasn't my shame to be carrying.
Right. No, definitely not. Um, Now you talked about, I want to go back to what I put you on hold on about your anger and, the level of forgiveness, and you haven't done that. And I guess, forgiveness is a journey, isn't it? To get there.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
I have to write about it. I did a Bible study on myself
Okay.
on how to forgive, because I was I was experiencing other things in my life besides the abuse that I went through.
Mhm.
My sister, she really did a number on me. She is the one I had to forgive,
Yeah.
and she's my only sister.
Right. You write about that in the book.
Yes,
Wow.
and it took a long time. It took 20 years to forgive her. Her little girl is 23 years old now. And I always used to say, well, is she my sister? Is she my daughter, my stepdaughter, or is she my niece? Because it's with my husband at the
Mm-hmm.
time.
Mm-hmm.
So who is this little girl?
Mm-hmm.
And I had so much anger towards my sister, but not towards my ex-husband.
Right.
And my mentality was, a man is a man. He's going to get whatever he can.
Mm-hmm.
But my sister should have known better.
I see.
Yes, than
Right.
to cross the line with me.
Yes. Right.
So that's where the forgiveness came. I had to learn how to forgive
Mm-hmm.
my sister.
Mm-hmm.
And I was so hard. And I did. I forgave her for having 3 kids with my husband.
That's a lot. Um, what what's the meaning of family to you?
My girls,
Mm.
my grandchildren, I have 8 grandkids. My husband, that's family.
Yeah, that
That's
it's
all
all
I,
here forward, but the
yes.
family behind you is,
I
yeah,
never had family. I
right.
don't consider that family.
Yeah. Well, you created your own family as you obviously, but you know, without
I had a
control.
goal.
Sorry.
I had a goal when I was very young
Okay.
that I needed to get out of the home I was living in
Uh-huh.
to make my own. And I was 15 years old when I decided I am going to get pregnant.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I need to save myself somehow.
All right.
And I did what I was taught to do,
Hmm.
right? I was taught how to do this,
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
and I didn't have to go back home. I never did. When I left home at 15, I never went back home. I miss it. When I used to go and visit my mom on her reserve, I'd take my girls there, and I would cry. I would cry before I get to the reserve to see her because I missed her very much. I missed being a kid because I never had it. I really wish I did have a better upbringing,
Yeah.
but that's the way it was.
Right. And what's interesting about you is the fact that your child like still carries forward to this day
Yes.
in your yeah.
I haven't grown up.
Yeah.
I know I could say that I have not grown up. I don't know what it's like to actually be an adult. I don't feel that.
Mm.
I I feel that my girls are more grown up than I am. I don't want to grow up because I missed out. I
So there's
don't know what it is to be a child.
Right. So there's a part of you that still wants to hold on to that youth. Is that it?
Yes, it's like I have no responsibilities anymore. Like I've raised my kids. I
Right.
used to say, I can't wait to be 40. I always said that I can't wait to be 40
Uh-huh.
because my youngest child will be 16 at that time. And I don't ever have to worry anymore. I could be the real me. And I ended up having a breakdown at 40
Mm.
because I used to worry about Children's Aid coming to get my kids. What if I'm not a good mom?
Hmm.
What if they take my kids away from me?
Hmm.
Because I don't know how to be a good mom. I never had that. My mom made me do this and that. And when I raised my girls, they didn't do dishes, they didn't cook, they didn't clean, they did nothing.
Hmm. But is that what it's really all about, or is it something else? I mean, at the end of the day, I think, I don't know if it's really about cooking or doing the dishes at a young age, because in fact, lots of kids do. Now, what I think what's missing is the other part.
There was never love.
Yeah. I mean,
There was never
because,
love in my family.
right. So that
My,
other,
my, I
sorry,
never felt that hugs.
right, right. So all that wasn't really your primary, thing. You weren't read to as a child, right?
No,
If you're reading, it's imperative to read to your children. If you're not given those basic needs as a child, then you're going to see washing the dishes as a real big chore,
yes.
right? Because there's lots of, I used to do it. So, so, but I had a little bit more of a balanced, of what it was like to go on my swing set or whatever it was.
No, we didn't have a swing set. We had a backyard.
Yeah. Well, I'm just giving
We
you
didn't have nothing.
yeah, yeah. No, and that's my point, right? Is that you didn't
Yeah.
have what you needed as a kid from your mom, from your, the boyfriend, and
When I had my kids, I made sure I read to them. And I still remember when I was reading to them when they were small,
yeah,
the book wasn't finished. I mean, the story was finished and they weren't asleep yet. So I would just continue the story and keep going and going, making up my own story until they fell asleep.
that's
And
beautiful.
I wanted that from my mom.
Hmm.
So yeah, I remember that. I was talking with my girls about that the other day. It's like, oh,
Well,
I
I
used to
think,
fool you guys.
yeah, you seem like you have, like, through all that sort of trauma, there's a real strong intuition in you in terms of doing things that were good for you, that were good for your family.
Yes, I actually believed I was the best mother out there. I really believed that
Right.
because I bought swimming pool passes for the girls and me. We would go swimming at the complex. We have to drive 10 minutes away from the community to go swimming every night. I would take them there. We'd
Right.
go to the movies all the time. I'd take them out to the restaurants all the time. We were always doing things. And this one summer, I think it was when my youngest was 15, I said, we're going to see how many times we can go into the lake because we live right on the lake.
Mm.
We went swimming in May that year, June, July, August, September, and the beginning of October.
Wow.
We jumped in that lake in October. We came out just as fast, but we ended up being in there 6 months out of the year. And those are things my girls remember. I want them to remember good things
Hmm.
because I wish I could remember good things.
Hmm. Well, maybe you're creating good things with them to replace all the bad things,
Yes.
you
And
know?
then my grandkids,
Yeah.
my oldest one is going to be 18 this year.
Wow.
I think I was 39 when he was born.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Tell me about, in the book, you write about this near-death experience that you had.
Yes. It
Have
was
you,
when I delivered my second child.
right. Have you explored that at all?
No, no, I just lived with it.
I,
I didn't look into it.
Yeah, I would, if you don't mind my saying so, I would encourage you to look into that because I mean that's a real power. I mean, you want to talk about God.
Oh,
There's a whole
yes.
community out there, and I can tell you about a woman who you can follow actually on social media.
Okay.
Yeah, and she's a wonderful author. You know, she's written a few books, and it's just anyway, it's just something I thought, wow, like there's so in your book, it's like you have story upon story upon story. It's
Yes,
yeah, it's so layered. It was just so jam packed into this small book. I thought, my God, I go, here's an opportunity for you to explore, and you never know what will come out of this exploration with the near
that's
death
right.
experience because there could be something there for you that you could learn. You don't know
Hmm.
from some.
When this happened to me,
Mhm.
I didn't know what happened to me.
I'm aware of that.
I was
Yeah,
pregnant for my next child, and I was having these flashbacks, and I'm thinking, I'm going crazy.
yeah, no, 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 no,
I'm losing it. I'm remembering things I'm not supposed to know.
no. Well, that's just it, right? Is
Yeah.
that this that your mom's boyfriend stole more than he stole so many things, right? If you want to look at it that way, right?
Yes, he stole my whole
Opportunity,
being back
opportunity.
then.
Yeah, to understand who you could have been as an adult, as a well-functioning adult in society, and what you could have provided. It's not to negate that you're not, but you're young and you can still do it, right? It's just going to look different. You can still do it. You're young.
Yes, I am.
Yes,
So
it is.
I continued school.
Yeah, I know you
I went
because
to,
you became a social worker, right?
yes, I did. And do you know why I became a social worker?
I have an idea, but please tell me.
Because my social worker didn't believe me when I was a little girl.
R- Right, it's the system, isn't it?
Yes. And
Why?
I said to myself, I want to be a social worker because I am going to believe those kids out there,
Right,
because how would a how would they make up some stories like that?
right, right.
And when I was about 40 years old, which wasn't too long ago, I contacted my social worker when I was a little girl. And she told me I can go and see her at her house. And we talked. And I told her, when I told you what my stepfather did to me when I was a little girl, I wasn't lying to you. He did do these things to me. He did this to me for 8 years. That woman sat there and cried. She said that she was sorry. She said there were so many other kids that she had to take care of that she didn't know what was the truth anymore. And I said, I was telling the truth and you didn't believe me. And you put me back in that home again. So I I I felt good about that after, confronting someone that didn't believe me.
Oh yeah.
And she's not a social worker anymore. She's still alive.
So
Still alive.
you've stopped practicing as well, though. Yes.
Yes, because some of the kids had a lot of trouble in school, a lot of behaviors.
Hmm.
And as educators, we are not allowed to ask them what is happening to you. We have to wait for them to come forward to tell us. And I could never go to my teacher and say, my stepfather's doing this to me. My uncle's doing this to me. I couldn't tell them that. But I really wish that somebody would have saw some of the signs. There's so many signs out there about children being sexually abused at home or elsewhere. And that's why I had to quit work, because it would tear me apart when these kids were misbehaving. And this one child in particular, the teacher had asked me, why is he doing that? Like he wouldn't let anybody touch anything on his table. He wouldn't even share his scissors, or when somebody asked for his eraser, he would always say, no, 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 don't touch, don't touch. And she says, why is he like that? And I said, this is what I think. I think he was abused. Something deep inside of him was taken from him, and he had no control over it. This pencil, he has control over that. He could say no.
Yeah.
I believe something happened to him.
Yes.
And they looked into it, and he was abused as a little boy. And I couldn't go back. It made me so sad. I was looking for reasons every day not to go to work.
Right.
And then that's when I had my breakdown. I was 40 years old.
What about, let's bring your father into the picture.
My dad.
Yeah.
I love my dad.
Yeah, he seemed like such a lovely person. What what happened? I mean, I know that we speak earlier about the very early beginnings of him and your mother. Did you, like, throughout your years, try and reach out to him for help?
For the first, only when I was a teenager, I started asking my dad for help. I would tell my dad about the beatings I used to get from my stepfather. Like, I used to get beatings all the time from him.
Right.
And I would tell my dad what's happening. And my dad tried to get custody of us. There was the three of us.
Yes.
But he said he didn't have a home big enough for us. And his job, there was really not a future in it. He worked until he retired at that same job, but there was no increase in pay, to be able to raise three kids back then. And there was, my mom had told me back then there wasn't a welfare system to help a man raise their children.
Okay.
It was there for the woman. So my dad had no choice but to give us back to my mom, because my mom left us. She left. My grandmother had to take care of us after. My dad took care of us as long as he can until his money ran out. And then he had to take us to my grandmother, and my mom came back home.
Well, it sounds like, as well, like something systemic there, even for your dad. It's, I guess we can all ask ourselves this question in terms of, like, how can our communities support how we can, I guess, find it within ourselves to save ourselves. Do you know what I'm getting at?
To help us
Yeah, but
grow.
instead of being reliant, right, on the government or any kind of assistance, instead of, like, creating these opportunities for ourselves and having thriving communities. And I know that, it's going to take a while, I think, on the reserves, and that, just by my assumption and by what you've shared with me today and in the book. Is your dad still with you?
No.
Right.
My dad passed 18 years ago.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
And my dad used to take us out to the restaurant when I was probably around 12 years old. My dad started taking us out. So I was 12, my brother was 10, and my sister would be 8. He would take us out to the restaurant, and we'd be able to bring a friend if we want. And we always ordered the same thing.
Yeah.
Fries and gravy and a chocolate milk. And then this one time, my younger sister, she was really close to my mom. And the waitress asked my sister, what do you want? She says, I want my mommy. Yeah. She didn't want to eat. She just wanted her mommy.
Right.
Yeah. And my dad would take us on trips to visit our relatives on his side. And I still don't even know who they are. I know maybe 10 of them. And his family was a big family. I think there was 9 or 13 kids in his family.
Wow.
It was a big family. And they all live in not my community, but 10 minutes away. They live 10 minutes away from me, and I don't know them.
Do you have the desire to reach out?
Yes. Some of them have found me on Facebook.
Right.
And they wanted to know about me. They've asked me for my book. And some of my aunts who, they're up there in age, late 70s.
Yeah. Is your apprehension again about, that you might have to share who you actually are?
Yes.
Right.
Like starting all over again.
Yes. Right. And reliving.
It's hard.
Right. And as a summary to this sort of discussion, I'm thinking this is where you're at today.
Yes.
Is still working through things, which is understandable, by the way. I hate using the word still, but
we'll always have to work through it.
Yeah, I mean, and you're not, look, I mean, excuse me, everybody has shame and everyone has things to work through in life. You're definitely not alone. Those are the things that you need to understand.
That's right.
Yeah. Your experiences are different than mine and so on and so forth. So I'll just touch on one last thing, which is your chapter called Safe People. And I wondered what, that you felt finally what it would be, what it's like to have a peaceful evening, right?
Yes.
For someone not to come in and to intrude and violate your spirit.
My one aunt who's 2 years older than me, and my cousin, she is 4 years older than me. They were my babysitters when my mom and stepfather would go away. And it was so peaceful. We'd have so much fun listening to music, playing games, and such a peaceful night, knowing I can actually sleep all night through without anybody touching me, without having to hold the blankets up against my chest. And I still sleep like that now. I have my hands are gripped around my neck with my blanket. And I know no one's coming in. No one's going to bother me. But the fear is always there.
The fear is always there, yeah. Have you actually sought out professional advice apart from this social worker?
Oh, yes. I've been in different therapies since I was 18 years old.
Right.
And I recently reached out to a hypnotist. She wrote many books, and we spoke quite often on Facebook. That's how I found her, on Facebook. I did a lot of research about who she is and what she does. And I had a lot of anger when she said, like in some of her things on Facebook, that you can be healed. I wrote her up this 1-page thing here. It's like, well, I've been molested by 13, 14, 15 men in my life, and you're supposed to heal from that? Tell me about it. And she wanted to meet me. And I think that is what I needed after all these years. She gave me hope. We talked. we both talked. My other counseling, they would make me talk. And then it would be the things that the social workers would learn in school, how they would respond to me. It's like, and how did that make you feel?
Hmm. Yeah.
I hated that.
Right.
Every counselor I saw in 20 years, it's like, and how did that make you feel?
Mm-hmm.
And what are you going to do about it?
Mm-hmm.
It's like,
Right.
well, I don't know. That's why I'm here. I need help. That's
Yeah.
why I'm here.
Oh, yeah.
But this woman that I started seeing this year, I only met with her maybe 4 times, and we really connected.
That's awesome.
On the last meeting, she said to me, "What do you want to talk about today?" And I said, "You know what? I don't think there's anything I really need to talk about anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have that shame anymore. I'm not carrying anybody's guilt. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not carrying their secrets anymore."
Yeah.
And she says, "You know what? I've been waiting to hear that from you because you've had that for a long time. I think you needed to hear it from somebody."
Right.
And then I sat down and started writing my book, because it was only journaling. I was only journaling on Facebook. There's only 3,000 words on Facebook that I wrote. And people started saying, "Did you ever think of writing a book?" And I was like, "No. I don't even think I ever read a book in my life. I went to college. I didn't read anything. I just sat there and listened to the professors."
Well, when I was reading your book, I'm thinking, I think there's more than, one book.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's,
It's incredible. I mean, our lives obviously, are layered, but you have a lot to
yes.
offer.
I think there will be another book because of the responses I had from people.
Right.
I
Yeah.
have so many private messages,
Mm-hmm.
so many,
Mm-hmm.
and they talk about their healing, that I inspired them
There you
to
go.
start speaking. And it's like, I did that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And other people I want to do their books.
Yeah.
So that's what I believe, that is my purpose. I needed a purpose, and I think that's what God had for me,
Mm-hmm.
because people always say, "Why do bad things happen to good people?" Do
Mm-hmm.
you ever hear that? Why
Yes.
do bad things happen to good people?
Yeah.
It's a learning experience. And now God gave it to me to help others heal,
Mm-hmm.
to let other people know they are not alone, that they could stand up and be proud of who they are and look themselves in the mirror and say, "You are beautiful." I do that every day now. Before, I couldn't do that because I didn't see the real me.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I seen a broken person.
Right.
So no more silent cries. I'm being heard now.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm happy for you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, you're a very powerful person. And I really admired your tenacity. And every time you came to an individual who was violating you, you got back up again. Um, and you never quit. And
I
so I
couldn't.
hope, no, and I hope that you continue to discover more things about yourself and unravel all these layers and come to a more peace within yourself and helping others. And I appreciate you being with me today. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it was lovely to have met you.
I enjoyed this. I really enjoyed this.
All right, excellent. So everyone, thanks for joining me on Tea and Chocolate. And if you want to reach out to Cherylann, I can certainly connect you, and you want to grab her book and, you know, gift it to somebody because it's very inspiring. And yeah, that's it. Hope you have a really good day, and thanks for joining me. Take care. Thanks, Cherylann.
You're welcome.